Urban farming in St. Louis. That's next on City Corner. I'm Steve Potter, and welcome to City Corner. Later in the program today, we're going to, well, not just later, now and later, we're addressing the issue of urban farming. And later, we are going to meet the man behind the bucket garden in the Carondelet neighborhood. But we begin by welcoming Mary Ostevie and Brent Hilling. They are representing Urban Harvest STL. Welcome to the show, both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mary, let me start with you. Urban Harvest STL, how long have you been around, and exactly what do you do?
Well, we founded Urban Harvest STL in 2011 as a grassroots initiative to start growing food in the downtown neighborhood. And over the years, we've kind of grown from a community garden, and now we have a rooftop farm in downtown St. Louis on 14th and Delmar. It's called the Food Roof Farm, and it's a full functioning urban farm on top of a roof.
And that's what your T-shirts
Exactly.
are proclaiming. How long have you been involved in this, Brent?
About 3.5 years. I started out as a community gardener with Urban Harvest STL and have followed the project all along, volunteering to help build the food roof, and as of March became the food roof manager.
Did you ever grow anything before? Was this something new for you, or what?
No, I grew up around a lot of livestock and produce coming out of the garden at my grandmother's house that kind of encouraged me to want to grow my own food.
What about you, Mary? I grew up, my parents did not grow anything edible, nothing. So, do you have a background in that?
I really don't. I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago. I really didn't have an opportunity to grow much food, but I grew up listening to these stories about my grandfather having this huge urban farm just outside of Chicago. So I think that planted the seed, and once I moved to St. Louis, I moved right downtown. I just had this desire to grow food.
Well,
so.
let me just throw this out there. Why do we need urban farms? I mean, I can drive to the grocery store.
Sure, but you can also grow food in your backyard or down the street and have it accessible at any time. And then you cut out the entire supply chain and transportation associated with it, and it's just a lot more accessible.
And fresher.
And tastes better.
It tastes better, it's fresher, it's more nutritional.
And what do you think about, about actually, doing the work? There's something to that. There's some enjoyment out of that. It's not just getting fresh food, but it's the process of doing it yourself, don't you think?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. We have weekly volunteers, about 15 people that come through just for that reason. They want to get their hands dirty and know what it is to grow food.
Well, we've got some pictures that you guys were nice enough to bring along, and why don't we take a look at those, and you can tell us what we're looking at and what the people are doing and where it is, if you can identify it.
Sure, so we're trellising cucumbers in this picture, and that's our backdrop, the city of St. Louis downtown. It's a beautiful view up there.
Trellising, because they grow out like a vine?
Exactly. That is actually one of our events where Brett was bartending for our guests. We have a community hub space, so we host a lot of different events on the roof over the year. Everything from pop-up harvest dinners and happy hours to yoga sessions and educational workshops on urban farming.
Do you find that most of the people that come to these events are these downtown city dwellers, or do they come from all over?
No, they're from all over the city, all over the place. Yeah.
What do you think the appeal is?
Well, it's the only farm on top of a roof in the city, so it's kind of a unique space, and we do have a gorgeous view and a different perspective. And it's nice to just, sit at some tables, some really nice tables in a space surrounded by a farm. It's just unexpected and different.
Let's look at a couple more images. Wow, that's something.
That's kind of the overview perspective of the farm. So it's about 8,500 square feet. We're growing over 100 different varieties of plants up there.
And who owns the building?
The building is owned by Bo Reinberg. He's a developer downtown.
Was it difficult to convince someone to let you use the top of their building to make a farm? I mean,
fortunately, we found the right person.
Oh, yeah?
We found the right person. He's really interested in community development and saw the potential of this project, and so he's been really great to work with.
And how many events do you have a year? Do you have a lot?
We have, I think this year we've had about 24 events of our own, and then we also rent the space out for people to have private events.
Well, where does the money come from? I mean, does it take much money to get this thing going? Is it self-sustaining, or how does all that work?
So we are a nonprofit. Our mission is really focused on food equity. So we give away a lot of the food. We work with charity partners who help us get the food into the hands of people who need it. So that's one reason we have a lot of different events, because that helps support that program. We also sell a small portion of the food to restaurants to help us put more money back into the community. And then we also collaborate with some local foundations. Philanthropy is still a part of our business.
And what's your role exactly, Brett? I mean, are you the guy out there watering and raking or whatever it takes?
I manage the volunteers and interns. I do the scheduling for the planting, starting all of our seeds in the greenhouse, caring for the chickens on the farm.
Now, where's the farm?
We're located at 14th and Delmar in downtown, right near the City Museum.
How many chickens do you have?
We have 2,
Now,
Brie and Cheddar.
I could be wrong on this. You correct me. They've only been legal in this city for just a few years. Am I right about that or not? Legal to own chickens, have them.
I mean, there's I think it's 4 chickens you can have per city lot.
Oh, I see.
No roosters. So there's, some things that need to change so that people can have more and start to see more livestock come into the city.
More livestock?
Yeah.
What do you think would be reasonable in addition to chickens? What could you see in an urban setting?
Small goats, pigs. I mean, there's a lot of smaller animals that could be utilized. Ducks.
Has the city been receptive? City leaders been receptive to this whole idea?
Yeah, absolutely. There are actually a couple of aldermen that are leading an initiative around urban agriculture and trying to expand the ordinance and just expand the opportunities for farming in the city. So it's happening.
I think it's actually coming up to vote again. They're trying to get it in front of the aldermen to make a vote to try to increase the number of animals and what you can have.
Let's look through some more pictures that you brought with you, and you guys just talk about them as we look at them.
Yeah, this is our greenhouse. This is where we start all of our seedlings. We have some tomatoes and peppers growing in there at this time as well.
Also known as Brett's office.
Yeah, my office.
That's all. I don't see a desk in there.
No, it's a standing
It's a stand-up
desk.
office.
Let's go to the next one.
It's another aerial shot of the food roof.
Yeah, I mean, the views from up there are just incredible, too.
It's pretty amazing, and it never gets old. And the sunsets are gorgeous, right over City Museum. It's really nice.
Let's keep looking at these.
So that was a field trip.
Do you
with
get kids involved a
local
lot?
school. Absolutely.
I would think kids would love this.
They love it. They walk up there and their eyes just light up. It's one of my favorite parts of this job, is just being able to expose children to the idea of growing food in the city.
They especially love the chickens.
Absolutely.
It's kind of nice when kids know that they have that option. I think a lot of kids might grow up and not even think about growing anything.
Right.
Right?
Exactly. And we're actually expanding to a school next week. We're building a small farm at Flance Early Learning Center, which is just north of the Food Roof Farm in the Carr Square neighborhood. So we're going to be growing food there and get the kids involved, and a lot of that food's going to go right into their cafeteria, and the rest of the food is going to stay in the neighborhood through a partnership with St. Louis Metro Market.
Well, when we talk about growing food, is there a long list of things that you grow? Is it a limited list, or are there things that you can't grow in this environment?
Yeah, well, and for us, some things that we can grow on the food roof, others that we need to grow on the ground.
You
so
probably
it's
can't
one of
grow
the
corn
reasons.
on a roof.
Right.
Corn, a lot
Because
of
it's just too big, I would think.
a lot of vegetables that have deep tap roots are kind of hard for us to grow on the food roof because we're only growing in about 8 inches of soil.
8 inches. So what can you grow most? You mentioned cucumbers, tomatoes.
Peppers, husk cherries, beets, radishes, carrots, onions, garlic. There's a lot of variety up there, a lot of flowers, things to pollinate.
Let's look at a couple more pictures. And we're talking about urban farming. Are these a couple of volunteers?
Well, actually, on the left is Jeremy, the founder of St. Louis Metro Market, one of our partners, and on the right is Joe Ostafy, the co-founder of Urban Harvest STL.
That name sounds familiar.
Also my husband.
I see. What motivated you and your husband to start this? Was it one thing in particular?
We moved to St. Louis, and we moved right downtown, and we
Was
wanted
there anything
more
like
green
this
space.
when you started? Was anyone else doing it?
Not in St. Louis. Not in St. Louis. It's happening in other places.
Well,
and
I
that
wanted to
was our
ask you about that
inspiration.
because, I think a lot of people think of urban farming as something new, but I'm just guessing it probably goes back.
People have been
hundreds-
growing
yeah, from the
food in their
beginning.
yards forever. And I should I should clarify, urban farming has been happening in St. Louis for sure. I was referring to a roof. In our neighborhood in downtown St. Louis, we don't have a lot of space on the ground, so that's why we looked to rooftops and started building up.
And I guess when you're talking about downtown space with buildings and things, getting enough sunlight would be a problem if you're down at street level,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah, so I mean, if you think about all of the flat roofs across the city, especially in downtown St. Louis, a lot of them have full sunlight. So there's no reason those spaces can't be used and become spaces for the community that are not only productive, but also make the quality of life better for downtown residents.
Let's look at a couple more pictures while we just talk about things. And do you have any food waste, Brett? I mean, all the vegetables that you grow, do they all have a destination place? Do they all end up somewhere?
Yeah, we have organizations that we're working with besides the restaurants. Operation Food Search. We have Fit and Food Connection, which is a fairly new nonprofit that's kind of pairing fitness and healthy eating. We get them about 65 to 70 pounds of produce each week.
Wow.
We also have Metro Market that was mentioned before. It's a city bus that's been retrofitted into a market. It goes into some underserved neighborhoods and gets produce back into the community.
You know, that's really important. It's great for anybody to be able to go get fresh vegetables, but particularly underserved communities that may not have a really nice market down the street, right? Their options are limited.
Exactly.
Yes.
And so have you found a real need there?
Oh, absolutely, and it keeps growing. We hope to expand and be able to grow more foods in the neighborhoods that we'd like to serve.
A couple things coming up I want to ask you about in the time we have left. A couple of other things that you do. I think you may have even mentioned one of them, but you have a sunrise. Yeah, you mentioned the sunrise yoga. What's that about?
So we're partnering with Southtown Yoga this year to offer yoga sessions on the rooftop. We have one session left this year, and that's on Saturday, August 20th in the morning.
Uh-huh. And then you have a honeybee workshop?
Yes, we have a honeybee workshop with a local beekeeper, Jennifer McComb, and she'll be basically showing everybody what's involved in beginner beekeeping. So getting a good understanding of, how to get started.
I always wanted to do that, but do you get stung a lot?
I have gotten stung a lot. That's part of being a beekeeper. You have to be okay with that.
The honey's good though, right?
Exactly.
And finally, you've got a fundraiser coming up sometime.
We do. We have our annual fundraiser, Raise the Roof, which takes place on September 22nd at Bissinger's Caramel Room and Rooftop Terrace. And it's just a fun event where we're going to have live music with Liquid Moon, and we're actually making a special one-time only food roof chocolate.
Ah.
So we're working with the chief chocolatier there to take a special ingredient from the farm and integrate it into a delicious chocolate.
No kidding. I look forward to that.
Yeah, it's just going to be a fun celebratory event.
And Brett, you said you were in charge of volunteers, did you?
Yes.
Are you always looking for volunteers? And
Always.
What makes a good volunteer for an urban farm?
People who show up. People aren't afraid to get their hands dirty who really want to learn something about growing their own food. We have people come, all ages. We do an open volunteer day every Saturday from 9 to 1.
All right. Well, we'll have some contact information come up. Just finally, just briefly, what's the most fun thing for you about being involved in this project? Brett?
Seeing where my food goes. Knowing that we're making a difference in the community.
Mary?
Working with all the incredible people that I get to work with on a daily basis.
Well, thank you. You guys are pretty incredible, too.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in. I love the whole roof garden idea.
You'll have to come see it.
I'd love to.
Come
Best
hang
of
out with
luck.
the chickens.
Let me know when the chocolate's ready.
Okay.
All right. We're going to continue our discussion about urban farming after this. Stay with us.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
The odds of this daughter of a clergyman spending 11 weeks at #1 on the U.S. singles charts? 1 in 19 million. The odds of going on to win 6 Grammy Awards? 1 in 1.4 million. The odds of having a child diagnosed with autism? 1 in 110. I'm Toni Braxton, and I encourage you to learn the signs of autism at autismspeaks.org.
I'm Steve Potter. Welcome back to City Corner. Today we're looking at urban farming in St. Louis, and to my immediate right, we want to welcome Fred Hessel. He's the Executive Director of the Carondelet Community Betterment Foundation. And also here is Mark Brown. He's from the Gateway Garlic Urban Farm and creator of the Bucket Garden. Gentlemen, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
Urban farming. So is that a hot thing right now? I guess it's been developing for a long time, but it seems like I hear more about urban farming in the last couple of years than I ever have before.
Well, there's a pretty good reason for that. When I moved to the Carondelet neighborhood late 2004, I had left the farm, coming from a long farm background.
So you grew up on a farm?
Well, half and half, really. It's sort of, I owned a farm up in Chillicothe, Missouri. I was working out of Chicago. I was originally from Chicago. My parents were both born before the war. They grew up with victory gardens, so I had all of that instilled in me from the early onset. But when I'd come down to Carondelet, and I instantly just started growing food and as much as I could. I missed the farm life, really, is what happened. And there were a lot of people that were looking at me going, what's this crazy long hair hippie guy growing out here? Like, urban farming, what is that? And then the market took a nosedive, as we remember a few years back. And that, I think, sparked this need, this necessity or desire from people to want to get closer to their food supply system. And where I was looked at as the crazy long hair urban farmer, people were now coming to me with questions, looking for possibilities of grow space.
So now you're the smart long-haired hippie farmer.
Yes, yeah,
Instead of
I
the
guess
crazy
so.
one. Right. Fred, tell me a little bit about your organization, the Carondelet Community Betterment Association, and I know they do they're involved in a lot of other things, not just this project.
True. Founded in 1971 by the Sisters of St. Joseph of Carondelet, basically to deal with the social services in the organization and to assist the poor and the well-being of people in the Carondelet and patch neighborhoods.
And so why are you interested in what Mark's doing?
So we operate a food pantry, the St. Joseph's Food Outreach Program at the center. And back in March, Mark approached me and said, well, what do you think about growing some food for the pantry yourself? I said, that sounds great. What's involved? He goes, I'll bring all the volunteers. I said, that sounds even better.
And how's it working?
Fabulous, fabulous.
Yeah.
We had a long, hot summer. But last night, as we're speaking now, last night we actually gone in and removed some of the older summer growth, and we replaced it with all our future winter growth, which is going to include things like lettuce and beans and winter squashes and more cucumbers, and so.
And I'd say to date, we've harvested right out of the backyard there, tomatoes, peppers, cucumbers, squash.
Right, because this garden, well, the Bucket Garden, which we're going to talk about here in 1 second, is adjacent to where your offices are.
It's in our backyard.
Yeah.
Backyard.
It comes right in the back door, right up to the.
All right, this Bucket Garden idea is a fascinating idea. It is what it says it is.
Exactly. Oh, I guess, yeah, there's a photo there. For starters, what we did was almost everything what you're looking at is actually made from recycled materials. Those are recycled buckets, recycled irrigation tubing that was donated to us by a greenhouse. I'm trying to see, let me see. Okay, oh, fabulous. Yeah, that's one of the better shots when we had basically first built it right after the volunteers. Every line of buckets is tied into an array. The tank you see below that is a rainwater collection tank. You can see the pipe running up the side of the building there, which is the CCBF's building, gathering rainwater, and it basically acts as...
You know, it's interesting. We just did a segment before you guys on part of what we talked about was having a roof garden.
Yeah.
So what you're doing in buckets is pretty much what they're doing on a roof.
Yeah, well, this system was actually developed for a rooftop system. We had stolen an idea called the Dutch bucket system. It was a
You mean borrowed?
Yeah, we borrowed, yes. And basically, it was a hydroponic system. And it's my viewpoint that hydroponic tomatoes taste kind of like cardboard, wet cardboard. Plants love it when their roots are in the soil. So we used another technique called bioponics, basically still using the organic medium for the plant to grow in, and we just married the two together. And we put in an acting model last year out in Chesterfield, and it worked like a dream and grew all winter long. And so what they have is actually the largest model of it. It's 4 times larger than the original model, but it's working fabulous.
Did I hear you use the term biodynamic?
Biodynamic. We are, Gateway Garlic Farms is a biodynamic urban permaculture farm.
And all that means what?
It basically...
It grows in soil.
Yeah, and we're concerned about natural ways of growing. We don't use chemical pesticides. We don't use chemical fertilizers. We try to gain these things from the environment around us.
So, Fred, you've been working with Mark and his folks for how long now?
Well, since I would say February when he brought the idea.
Yes, so it's like a brand new idea.
And we waited for the weather to kind of break and started laying out the array. He brought volunteer groups in, one after the other.
What's the reaction to the community, from the community?
Well, I think everyone loves it. We've got a lot of our the neighborhood residents who walk by, they see it, and they're like, well, that's kind of interesting, you know, growing food instead of grass, something that's useful.
Okay. Do you think that's prompting people to sort of try it themselves in their own backyards? What have you seen happen?
I've noticed that we have a Facebook page called Gateway Garlic Farms, and when we posted that on the page, there were a lot of people who were coming out from the out western suburbs to drive past it just to take a look at it. And they were inspired. People were sending me messages, how could they start it up themselves?
We have a video that I think, Mark, that you actually shot yourself.
Probably.
From the Bucket Farm. Well, why don't we take a look at that, and you can kind of talk about what we're seeing as we look at it, and I think you're actually like walking through it.
Oh, yes.
You know, when I developed the Carondelet bucket system,
let's see, we're at the video. Yeah, we're showing, these are these Italian sweet peppers, very delicious, growing in these buckets. What you're seeing is the greenhouse irrigation tubing that runs adjacent to the side of the buckets. Each bucket has its own tap lines that go in there, and all of those are all tied into the array. The system itself was built to use very little city water. It's going to exist primarily on rainwater.
And is there a reason for that?
Because we should be concerned about how much water we use. We should be concerned about water-saving techniques. And with all the rainfall that falls in the city, all that water just gets dumped into our storm sewers. Why not utilize it?
And so how many buckets have you got there?
I believe there's 250. And so, yeah, here you can see some of the irrigation tubing running through there, and we're stepping through there. Originally, people were laughing at us saying, you can't grow tomato plants in buckets. You'll never get fruit. Obviously, you can see.
I do it. I do it.
Excellent, excellent, very good. There's a lot of garden myths that are out there that we shatter on our Facebook page constantly.
Well, some people grow the tomatoes like in the hanging baskets and things.
Yes.
You've seen that, haven't you?
Yes, that was very popular. This system is also adaptable, and somebody who wants to use it for its original purpose, which was aquaponics and bioponics, they can actually have fish in the fish tanks and amend the soil with a solution from that.
Talk a little bit about the role of volunteers that you have. What role for them, and how many you have, and what they do?
Right now during the summer season, we're running 8 volunteers on our various urban allotments, harvesting food, produce. We do a lot of teaching with schools. We have a lot of outreach where we host educational seminars. We built for $275, we built a greenhouse, a 40-foot by 14-foot greenhouse.
Wow.
That we use as a teaching tool to show different types of urban farming mechanisms and how you can use to grow.
Fred, did you have any background in this, and are you a student of this now too? Or?
Well, I am now, yes. But I mean, I did some backyard gardening myself, of course. Tomatoes, basil, that kind of stuff, peppers. But I tell you, it's not uncommon to walk out my back door and see Mark there with a group of college students or a group of elementary school students. You know, they're there for about 15 minutes as part of his stop on his tour.
And I understand, Mark, that those sunglasses are not just a fashion statement.
They are not just a fashion statement. It's a necessary tool. Working out in the summer heat, especially in the bright light, it it definitely helps the eyes. So
Recently, you had a tomato fest. I guess, is that going to be something you do every year? And what was that all about?
well, it's technically not our fest, but it is the neighborhood fest. It basically celebrates the love of the tomato.
Is that something that your group had started? Or?
No, it happens with the Business Association and the Iron Barley Restaurant down on Virginia Avenue.
Okay.
And basically, Tom's wife, being of Italian descent, of course, loves the tomatoes. And so they started this tomato fest, and we're down there every year.
Garlic goes pretty good with tomatoes.
Garlic goes very good with
You've
tomatoes.
got a garlic fest coming up at some point.
And we have a garlic fest coming up on September 4th. That's another neighborhood festival. It was originally started to bring focus to sustainable and permaculture ideas. There's a lot of recycling projects that go on. It's a big family festival. And we bring out a lot of demonstration gardens, teaching people how they can do it for themselves. And garlic was the vehicle that we used to bring that to the people. So,
Do you have it in September? Is that when garlic? Is that when you harvest garlic?
no, actually, you can harvest your spring planted garlic. Most people plant garlic in the fall. Garlic is a real sustainable crop. I should begin to say that this is
You're
why
going to
we're
get them started on the garlic.
Yes. Garlic is a very sustainable crop as it grows during the wettest months of the year. And you really plant it in the fall and you harvest it probably late May to early July, depending on your varieties. And right now in Carondelet,
Who knew there were varieties of garlic? I didn't even know that.
we're growing 205 varieties.
No kidding. Wow. Fred, before we run out of time, I want to ask you about the Carondelet Community Betterment Foundation. You have a concert season?
Yeah, every summer we run a concert series. It's our 28th year. Obviously, the summer is coming to a close. Our last concert is August 28th this year. It's in Carondelet Park.
What's that going to be?
Starts at 5:30.
What kind of music is it?
It'll be blues, Katie Allen Blues Band.
Oh, you can't beat that, right? And so to wrap things up, Mark, are you always looking for volunteers? Or are there things people could do for you?
We're always looking for volunteers. We have a good source of volunteers. Really, we're always looking for people who want to learn and people who want to do things better. And we love collaborating and the sharing of knowledge, and that's really what we look for. So anyone who's looking for us, they can find us on Facebook at Gateway Garlic Farms.
And Fred, what's the most fun thing about living in the Carondelet neighborhood?
Seeing the garlic farm actually down on South Broadway. It's even more exciting than the bucket garden, I think.
You think so?
Yeah.
Why?
The garlic farm is just very intriguing. It's down at about the 7,800 block.
7600 block.
7600 block of South Broadway.
Broadway, and we originally built that on 26.5 tons of food waste from the Iron Barley Restaurant.
Well, we have CarondeletLiving.org if they want to find out more about the foundation and all the other things that you do. I hope people will investigate that. Thanks for making our community more interesting and healthy and, I guess, spicy as far as garlic goes.
Yes.
Right?
Garlic is the spice of life.
Thank you, gentlemen, very much.
Thank you.
Continued success with what you're doing.
Thank you.
I'm Steve Potter, and that's our look at urban gardening in St. Louis. Thanks for watching, and join us next time. Bye.